In July 1985, treasure hunter Mel Fisher and his crew discovered the priceless cargo of the fabled Spanish galleon, the Etosha.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Kim!
Who found it, Kim? There. You find it? All right.
You can wear anything you want now.
The dream that had consumed Fisher for 17 years finally came true. He had found the greatest cache of treasure the world had ever seen. He discovered the Rainbow's End, stacks of gold and silver bars, chests of coins, jewels, and countless valuable artifacts. Today, we'll look at some of the remarkable events surrounding the discovery of the Etosha. We'll travel to the Isle of Devils, Bermuda, to look for lost ships and artifacts with renowned treasure hunters Teddy Tucker and Henry Cox. Later in the program, we'll see how time and seawater affect shipwrecks and their precious cargo. We'll also feature some of the most commonly found treasure coins. And finally, we'll examine a controversy that pits archaeologists, governments, and treasure hunters against each other. Today, on Undersea Explorer. A shallow reef. Jagged corals lie just inches below the surface. Under the cover of night or in storm-tossed seas, these hidden reefs have hastened the demise of many ships. Countless vessels met violent fates, and many have perished since man first ventured onto the oceans. On older shipwrecks, a scattered pile of ballast stones or a coral-encrusted anchor or cannon may be all that remains of a once proud vessel. These are the clues that modern-day wreck and treasure hunters search for. With the advent of technologies like scuba, sonar, metal detectors, and submersibles, many of these shipwrecks have recently been discovered. These historic time capsules are only now revealing their long-guarded secrets. Buried by sediment, debris, and sometimes hundreds of years of coral growth, these ships do not give up these secrets easily.
You know, I've never ceased to be amazed at the drama which going into the sea involves. The mere act of putting a face mask on and suddenly becoming a part of the underwater world as opposed to our dry world has never ceased to thrill me in my diving life. I think the most exciting thing that happens underwater first is discovery. The discovery of a ship is to come upon a capsule, if you like, of time. I've never understood quite what the word treasure means, except that I read, of course, like all boys did, Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, and the words uttered by that parrot that sat on the shoulder of Long John Silver and talked to generations of children, pieces of eight, pieces of eight. But the discovery of treasure is actually being able to touch someone else's life who has lived perhaps hundreds of years before you yourself have lived. That is the magic of being in the sea.
Gold, silver, emeralds, precious cargo from a Spanish treasure galleon, the Etosha, bound for Spain from Cuba almost 400 years ago. On September 4th, 1622, a 28-ship convoy left Havana Harbor. The vessels were laden with New World products like tobacco, indigo, and an immense wealth of silver and gold. Their journey ended in tragedy as the fleet was battered by a raging hurricane. 8 ships, including the Etosha, were wrecked on the treacherous reefs west of the Florida Keys. Only 5 of the 265 persons aboard survived. For over 370 years, the priceless cargo of the Etosha lay undisturbed in a shallow, watery grave. Many searched, but the hiding place remained a mystery. For Mel Fisher and his team of treasure hunters, days became weeks, weeks became months, and months became years. 17 years passed before one magnificent day changed the lives of everyone involved forever. On July 20th, 1985, a marine radio crackled to life in the Key West office of Treasure Salvers Incorporated. The message? Put away the charts. We've got the mother lode. At 1:05 p.m. that fateful day, Mel Fisher learned that his greatest dream had been realized: the discovery of the world's richest cache of lost treasure. As the days and weeks passed after the discovery, it became clear that the staggering treasure of the Etosha would surpass even the riches of King Tut's tomb. Over 50 tons of gold, silver, emeralds, and artifacts were pulled from the wreck site. The Spanish had shipped a seemingly endless supply of gold from Peru, emeralds from Colombia, and silver from Mexico to the Royal Treasury in Seville. After nearly 2 decades of searching and great personal and financial hardship, Mel triumphed with his amazing discovery of the Etosha. He had come a long way from humble beginnings in the Midwest state of Indiana.
Yeah, it's really been a wonderful, exciting life. We started out with a 5-gallon paint can, turned it upside down, put it over my head, you know, but it floated, so I had to take a tire off of my bicycle and wrap around the bottom of it, and sacrifice all my lead soldiers and melt them down and pour them in the tire, and then we could stay down. And now I'm bringing up gold and emeralds and silver and all kinds of magnificent treasures. You just never know what you're going to find next. It's been a very good life. I've enjoyed myself, and I've got a lot of kids now and grandkids and great-grandkids, and most of them are all into the diving and treasure hunting too.
Mel Fisher pioneered many salvage techniques, one of which included the mailbox. It was a device used to deflect propeller thrust downward toward the ocean bottom. It allowed divers to sift through sediment and debris in a fraction of the time it would normally take. A combination of the mailbox, handheld metal detectors, magnetometers, sonar, and a dedicated family and crew all contributed to the discovery of the Etosha. In addition to the more valuable items, the Etosha revealed a fascinating glimpse into the life of Spanish sailors of the 17th century. Divers uncovered a staggering array of artifacts, from cutlery to large olive jars. This would prove to be one of the most significant archaeological finds in modern history.
We're so excited uncovering all that about 100 tons of gold and silver and magnificent things. And we didn't realize it, but while we were blowing away the seashells and the mud, we were blowing away a couple $2 billion worth of emeralds. And they're scattered all over the ocean floor out there now. There still remains today another 50 tons of gold and silver, another big pile of treasure on the Margarita that we still haven't found. Now this is 24 years later. We're still searching, and I think we'll find it today. I'm getting on a plane because I think today's the day. I'm going back to Key West and take a look at that big pile.
Bermuda. The ocean bottom surrounding the island is littered with the remains of hundreds of shipwrecks. From the beginning of the 16th century, Bermuda became a landmark for sailors returning to Europe, often with disastrous results. The desire to sight Bermuda to confirm their position often ended a voyage. Ships crashed on jagged reefs that extended up to 10 miles offshore. Navigating the reefs that encircled the island was a hazardous undertaking for the sailing ships of the era. Their instruments were crude and unreliable, and the reefs were frequently only a few inches below the surface. Dr. Edward Harris of the Bermuda Maritime Museum explains.
Bermuda stands in the middle of the sea routes back to Europe, and the small coral island is surrounded by reefs up to a depth of 10 miles. And of course, the ships often came across Bermuda in the middle of the night on their way back to Europe, and unfortunately ended up on the reefs. Before the invention of the Harrison chronometer, it was very difficult to work out your position east and west. And so early mariners used Bermuda as a beacon, which they hoped to see, which gave them their position. And they could then, in effect, turn right for Europe. Unfortunately, they often came up on the wrong side of Bermuda, thinking they were on the other side. And particularly if it was in the night or in a storm, they were in great difficulties and often ended up on the rocks.
This is some little iron nails and stuff, fittings, ship fittings. Look at all these. This is a ship that was burnt. And all of these, that'd be wrought iron. It's picked up, the iron is oxidized and picked up the ground up coral and sand.
In 1955, a young salver and part-time treasure hunter named Teddy Tucker discovered gold, silver, and jewels from the 1596 wreck of the Spanish ship San Pedro.
In 51, I found the ship. In 55, we started working on it. And a couple of days after we got out there, we started picking up little gold, pieces of gold bars, silver coins, gold ingots, and jewelry, and all the other artifacts that go with the ship.
Teddy's dock front is littered with artifacts gathered during 5 decades of successful salvaging. Now in his early 70s, Tucker is not one to sit back and rest on his laurels. He still actively searches for new wreck sites. Along with a few close friends and his daughter Wendy, Teddy explores Bermuda's reefs on his boat, the Miss Wendy. Tucker rarely uses electronic devices to find shipwrecks. He relies mainly on a sharp memory and visual clues. One of his more unusual methods is to tow a diver behind the boat. This allows for a perfect view of the bottom features of a reef.
No, nothing but flint.
Looking for ballast stones, cannons, or an encrusted anchor, divers scan the bottom for hours at a time. On this day, we were lucky to spot one of the best indicators of a possible shipwreck, an anchor wedged in a coral reef.
If you notice, there's a ring that fits right in the end of it, and that is actually broken off. And part of the spade is actually buried right into the rock, grown right into the rock. So we would consider this a very, very old anchor.
My father's been diving or around the ocean since he was about 5 years old. He's now 71. And a few of us on the boat today have said, well, when he can't, we'll take him with us. And he would like to do that.
That's it. It's just it's that satisfying. It's an adventure and a continuous treasure hunt and a very entertaining way to pass life.
Another one of Bermuda's colorful treasure hunters is Henry Cox. Like Tucker, Cox does not use modern methods like sonar or magnetometers. Instead, he uses 40 years of experience and instinct to search for wrecks and artifacts. One of the salvage claims Henry Cox currently works is the Manila wreck. This 18th century Dutchman lies in 15 feet of water. Stacks of cannons are overgrown with hundreds of years of coral encrustation. Henry still finds beads, musket and cannonballs, and other artifacts on the site.
I fanned the sand some more, and there twinkled into my view 3 perfectly minted and struck gold coins.
When a ship sinks, a number of decaying processes begin. Wood and most types of metal deteriorate quickly in the marine environment. Gold is one of the only metals that is completely unharmed. It remains as shiny and new as the day it slipped below the surface. Wooden timbers, however, are particularly vulnerable and are usually eaten away by teredo worms. The wood cellulose fibers are also attacked by chlorine salts. If the timbers of a ship's hull are buried beneath sand or mud, they can last for centuries. As soon as they're exposed to seawater, they begin to crumble. A ship may last only a few decades before completely disappearing. In order to preserve wood and metal artifacts, archaeologists must use a variety of methods.
The preservation of timber involves the replacement of the decayed cellulose from the wood cells. This is done by soaking the object in a water-soluble wax or an ordinary sugar, which replaces the cellulose, and when the object is dried out, the crystal of the wax of the sugar expands and bulks out the walls of the cells, and so the object is preserved in its original form. This is a gun port from the English ship, the Warwick, which sank at Bermuda in 1619. We are soaking the timber of the actual gun port in polyethylene glycol to preserve the timber. Any object which has been buried in the sea for a period of time will be impregnated with chlorine salts from the ocean, and these must be removed if the object is to be preserved. This is done by electrolysis, whereby you put a current through the metal object and you have a sacrificial anode in the same tank, and so the chlorine comes out of your artifact and goes to the sacrificial anode. These are two cannonballs that were taken off a shipwreck at the same time. This one has been put through electrolysis and has been conserved. This one, for demonstration purposes, is not, and you can see what happens to the object after several years, where the chlorine salts basically destroy the metal object from the inside. Other iron artifacts are covered by a coral concretion, and the iron may have completely dissolved away, so that you can in fact fill it up with epoxy and remove the concretion, so that here we have a nail from a ship. It's fallen off the timber when it was eaten away, covered by coral. The iron is completely wasted away, but the shape of the object has been preserved in the inside of the coral, and this nail, which looks just like the original artifact, is epoxy.
Balancing the interests of salvors and archaeologists is now a hotly debated subject. Treasure hunters like Mel Fisher frequently find themselves in court doing battle with state, federal, and local authorities. There is no doubt that without the hard work and perseverance of the treasure hunter, most of these ships would never be found.
When an archaeological site is destroyed by salvage divers, we lose our heritage in two ways. Firstly, the sites are generally not recorded, that is to say, transferred into photographs or paper. And secondly, the artifact collections are sold off into the private domain so that we lose their value as a historic collection. Underwater archaeological sites are part of our common international heritage. These sites should be preserved for generations to come. When it's necessary to disturb a site, it should be done by archaeological methods, and the artifacts should be kept in the country in which the ship has gone down.
I think they're wrong, and I think I'm right, and I'm sure I'll win because I went through this before when I found this big pile of treasure on the Atocha and also on the 1715 fleet in Central Florida. And the U.S. government said they owned it all, and the state of Florida said, no, they owned it all. And I said, no, I own it all. So we had 111 federal court hearings And 2 of them were in the appellate court and 1 in the Supreme Court of the United States with 9 judges presiding, and I won. How about that? I won the whole thing. And now, I couldn't believe last year they're doing it again, and now I got to go through these court things all over again.
I don't defend the philosophy of the gravedigger, whether he be in the Peruvian highlands or whether it is a diver here in Bermuda. I don't regard myself as a thief or as a man who would purloin the properties of generations to come. I think I'm in a position to contribute to that wealth of heritage, and that's what I'm doing.